Hello, dear viewer, it's me, the man on your screen. You ever wonder what the worst album ever is? After listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers' entire discography, a light bulb appeared right above my head. Is this really as bad as it gets, I wondered? Today, I've compiled a list of every band I can think of, and using albumoftheyear.com's user score, I've grabbed every artist's worst record, and I'm going to rank them on this tier list here. You may notice the tier list was upside down, but don't fear, that's on purpose. We're looking for the worst of the worst, not the best of the worst, so with that little preamble out of the way, let's dive right in. Aerosmith, Music from Another Dimension. Man, do we start off with an absolute stinker. This dropped in 2012. That's about 80 years after Aerosmith's prime, and it's very blatantly clear that that's the case. I was never a huge Aerosmith fan, but this is it's a terrible project. Bravo. I think we've already got a worst of all time contender here. A Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant. Maynard, you bastard. This is pretty weak stuff from the gang here. 14 years after their previous album. That's actually longer than the gap between Fear Inoculum and 10,000 Days with Tool. No one mentions that. But this was not even slightly worth the wait. It's not an unbearable project, but it's just not all that good. Really weak second half. C tier. Alice in Chains, Rainier Fog. This kind of stinks. I'm a No Lane, No Chains guy, but I enjoyed a couple songs on this project. There's just no real reason to come back to this, top to bottom, no way. Super mid stuff. C tier, behind a perfect circle. REM, Around the Sun. Man, this isn't quite bad enough for me to care, you know what I mean? It's not abhorrently bad, but it just feels like a giant waste of time. Every song here is pretty bad, but it's not even fun bad. It's just regular bad. D tier. Slipknot, The End So Far. Pretty weak shit here, but again, it's not fun bad. A couple tracks toward the beginning didn't suck complete ass, but everything after track 5 on here was pretty dog shit. I'm going top of the C tier. Death, Spiritual Healing. Our first genuinely good project. These guys just don't have a bad album. It definitely is their weakest album, and there's not really a track here that I love, but everything is good enough, I would say. B tier. Biggie Smalls, The King and I. This album is credited as Faith Evans and Biggie, but it's so bad that I thought I had to include it. This is one of the most insulting pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. 20 years after Biggie's death, to watch Faith Evans defile his grave for the third time in Biggie's career and deliver one of the stinkiest albums ever is surreal. There's actually not a single redeeming quality about this project. This might actually be the worst of all time. I'm going top of the woe tier. Black Sabbath, Forbidden. Oh man, when I saw the fucking Ice-T feature, I knew this shit was toast. 44 minutes of terrible music, soulless garbage, shockingly bad stuff. Woe tier, behind Biggie. Soundgarden, King Animal. This isn't terrible stuff, but it's kind of sad to hear. It came out almost 2 decades after the band's peak with Super Unknown, and it's pretty clear. It feels like a cash grab. It's relatively hollow, generic rock, but I can't call it a terrible project. Back of the C tier. Led Zeppelin, In Through the Outdoor. This album hurts way more because it's Led Zeppelin. Had the Chili Peppers drop this project, we might be talking about a top 3 album from them, but in Led Zeppelin's discography, this is just super weak. All My Love is a good song. I'd say everything else here is pretty mediocre. Above Soundgarden, in the C tier. Blur, Leisure. It's got some highlights, but this is far from consistently good. It's not the worst thing I've heard today, but top to bottom, this wasn't worth the listen, no way. C tier, above Led Zeppelin. Boston, Life, Love, and Hope. Damn, this sucks ass. Some of the worst songs I've ever heard on here, seriously. A contender for the vote, behind Black Sabbath. Bullet for My Valentine, Gravity. Nothing sandwich. Matter of fact, there's no bun on that sandwich either. It's just nothing on a plate, an empty plate. Fruitless listen. Top of the D tier. Frank Ocean, Channel Orange. This is a great project. This guy has 2 albums, and they're both great. I give Blonde the comfortable edge, but this is still a very unique experience top to bottom. Easy and free S tier. Ghostface Killah, Set the Tone, Guns N' Roses. And 30 years out of his prime, Ghostface Killah delivers a painfully mediocre record. This is kind of fun bad, though. So outlandishly bad that it almost feels like it's on purpose. If this was purposefully terrible, he executed that incredibly well. Top of the D tier. Gojira, The Link. This isn't a horrible project, I wouldn't say, but I don't think I'd call it good either. Very middle-of-the-road stuff. Couple great songs on here, and then a bunch of ass. Back of the C tier. Red Hot Chili Peppers' self-titled project. I love to hate on the Chili Peppers. It's one of my favorite things to do. Did you know Anthony Kiedis is a pedophile? Self-admitted in his own biography. I like to mention that. As for the album, it's egregiously bad. 0 good songs, 0 decent songs, to be honest, and a cataclysmic amount of garbage on this album. I'm going woe tier, behind Boston. Gorillaz, The Fall. The Fall indeed. This comes after their masterclass of an album, Plastic Beach, and might not even be half as good as that project is. This stinks. There's nothing worth revisiting here. Back of the D tier. The Cure, Wild Mood Swings. I really like the first track here. That's all I have to say. The rest is bad. Back of the D tier. Modest Mouse, The Golden Casket. The band's most recent project and comfortably their worst. Everything is bad. There's no good. Let it end. Above REM, in the D tier. The Beatles' Yellow Submarine. I mean, it's just not very good stuff. The first half is alright enough. It's inconsistent, but the second half of this is very consistent. It's just really consistently bad. Back of the D tier. Audioslave Revelations. Audioslave successfully evaded their formula of having a strong first half and a terrible second half on this record by putting all the garbage in the dead center and putting the good stuff at both the beginning and the end. The good isn't all that good, though. I won't be back here. C tier above Soundgarden, I think that makes sense. Guns N' Roses' The Spaghetti Incident. Holy shit. This video is starting to become exhausting, dear viewer. Please leave a like. I listen to Big Dumb Sex for you. This album is awful, and it just gets worse and worse as it goes. My God. Top of the D tier. Fishman's Chappie Don't Cry. I shrug my shoulders at this album. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but after the Spaghetti Incident, this shit sounds like Mozart. Above Gojira, in the C tier. Black Country New Road, Forever How Long. This is great stuff, but my musical palette has been abhorrent these last couple of days. This isn't world-shattering stuff, but it's pretty solid. Very cohesive record, top to bottom, I would say. A tier. Slow Dive, Everything Is Alive. I mean, it's alright. I'm not the shoegaze guy, but I thoroughly enjoyed Souvlaki, their debut. This, not so much. Better than most of the shit I've ranked so far, but I probably won't be back anyway. Top of the B tier. Pierce the Veil, The Jaws of Life. I read the track list for this record and very quickly read the track 12 feature as Chino Moreno, and proceeded with that blatantly incorrect information until this album ended. I was incredibly disappointed to find whoever the fuck Chloe Moriando is, and that song stunk like ass. The album starts strong enough, but man, does it get bad as it goes on. Behind Blur, in the C tier. Joy Division, Closer. Another artist with 0 bad records. This is just the slightly weaker of their 2 albums, I think. Still has no reason being on this list. Back of the S tier. Kanye West, Donda 2. Oh, Kanye, what did they do to you? I'm not sure what the fuck happened to Kanye West, but with the release of this album, that motherfucker went completely off the deep end. This is far and away his worst full-length project. Every song here blows complete ass, and you know what they say. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think that's how it goes. I don't remember. This sucks. Woe tier. Above Boston. Raekwon, Fly International, Luxurious Art. Man, this might just be the worst album cover I've ever seen. The music inside, however, is... well, actually, it's also terrible. Top to bottom, this is bad, to be honest. Funny bad, though. I laughed a lot here. Above Modest Mouse, in the D tier. Kendrick Lamar, Section 80. This also probably doesn't belong here. This guy is just that good. This is probably his weakest project, but it's still got a fuck ton of charm. It has a beautiful place within Kendrick's own discography. I like it. Back of the A tier. Megadeth, Super Collider. Goddamn, this is bad. This dropped in 2013, so Dave Mustaine must have been, what, about 132 years old? Because, man, this is a far cry from albums like Rust in Peace. I'm surprised that egotistical goofball even released something this mediocre. The only thing that could make this worse is if Lars Ulrich was on the drums, behind the Chili Peppers, in the Woe tier. Limp Bizkit, Results May Vary. If you ask me what the worst album of all time is, this might have been my answer before making this video. This is abhorrently bad. The Snoop Dogg feature is the icing on the pile of dog shit. Or really, it's the pile of dog shit on top of the pile of dog shit. I can't even believe this exists. It's an hour and 8 minutes of actual trash, 0 bad songs, all terrible songs. Woe tier, behind Biggie. Avenged Sevenfold, Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. Now don't get me wrong, this is terrible stuff, but it's not quite as bad as I may have made it out to be in my other video. I see it in a new light now after that Limp Bizkit record. Still incredibly boring though. D tier, behind Raekwon. Linkin Park, One More Light. I mean, this just blows, man. The title track is pretty great, very heartfelt, very touching stuff, but everything else here is just completely soulless garbage. This isn't Linkin Park to me, this is pop radio trash. D tier, above Ghostface Killah. Mad Season, above. Only one album from these guys, and it's a goodie. Not much else to really say. Lane is the GOAT. This album is pretty solid stuff. Back of the A tier. Metallica, Saint Anger. Man, oh man. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't one of the first albums that came to mind for this video. This is laughably bad stuff. It's super funny to think about a Metallica fan lined up at the record store on June 5th, 2003, and then he's handed this actual flaming pile of garbage. This is insultingly bad stuff. Above Black Sabbath, in the Woe tier. Rage Against the Machine, Renegades. It's comfortably their weakest record, but I do find myself coming back to a couple tracks on this album. It's not so bad. It's just a couple of pretty decent covers. Top of the B tier. Misfits, The Devil's Reign. Shoo. This is rough. It's sad to see a band go out like this. 30 years after their debut record, They dropped this shit in 2011. It's like watching your 19-year-old cat try and get up the stairs. It's like finding out your grandfather's a racist. It's so bad that it genuinely made me sad. Behind the Chili Peppers, in the WOT tier, Mr. Bungle, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo. Very out of place within Mr. Bungle's discography. This feels far more like a Faith No More record to me. It's not bad, but it's certainly not great. Couple decent tracks, but I won't be back. Behind Soundgarden, in the C tier. Muse, Will of the People. Man, this is just terrible. What a joke of an album this is. Society bad. That sentiment for 40 minutes, unbearably boring. Back of the WOT tier. Acid Bath, Pagan Terrorism Tactics. Another band with no bad albums. Well, there's only two, but still, I can always respect a band dropping some great shit and then just leaving the music scene. Not quite as good as their debut, but I enjoyed this project. Back of the A tier. My Bloody Valentine Isn't Anything. I still don't get this band, man. But mister, they created the shoegaze genre. I don't care, man. I listened to this today, no context, just me, a bong, and my headphones, and I come out shrugging my shoulders. C tier, behind Led Zeppelin. Incubus 8. Just unbearably mediocre shit here. I don't even want to talk about it. Behind Ghostface Killah, in the D tier. My Chemical Romance, Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. There's a couple alright songs here. There's a lot of mediocre songs here. And then there's a few terrible songs here. It's no Black Parade. It's more like a Grey March. Above Gojira, in the C tier. MF Doom, Super What? Released after his death. This isn't nearly as insulting as the Biggie project, but I always find these releases pretty disingenuous. If you really like MF Doom, you'll probably like this record, but why listen to this? It's a collection of unreleased mediocrity. Above Mr. Bungle, in the C tier. David Bowie's self-titled, the first one, not the second one, though either of them probably could have made this list. This is horrible. There's nothing redeeming about this record, minus David Bowie's name. If this wasn't his album, I don't think anyone would ever listen to this. It stinks. Behind Megadeth, in the WOT tier. Creed, Full Circle. Truthfully, any Creed album probably could have made this list, but I've gone with their final record here. Even the biggest Creed fan you know will be unable to name a song off this album. Super forgettable, super generic, super boring. Behind Avenged Sevenfold, in the D tier. Nas, Nostradamus. This sucks, but I'd like to highlight the 12th track on this record, as it might be the worst song I've ever heard. Big Girl is truly a contender for the worst song of all time. My god, what horrid lyricism. This project sucks. Behind Linkin Park, in the D tier. Green Day, Father of All. To quote Q Magazine, it's close to impossible to emerge from its rapid-fire near half hour without a smile on your face. My god, were they right, but only because I nearly ascended upon finding the true worst album of all time. The Biggie album is an insult to a legend's legacy. This is an insult to anyone with ears. I think this actually might be worse. Top of the WOT tier. Godspeed You Black Emperor. Luciferian Towers. It's very alright. Definitely the worst album. I won't be back. Behind MF Doom, in the C tier. Coldplay, Music of the Spheres. I'm usually bored when I listen to Coldplay, but man, they outdid themselves with this one. This isn't their worst record, but it might just be the most boring record. It sounds like AI wrote pop songs built exclusively for the radio. This last song is pretty good though. I like the last song. Above Linkin Park, in the D tier. A Tribe Called Quest, The Love Movement. This isn't all bad, but it's really boring. A couple decent tracks, but there's very little here that I would come back to. Above Audio Slave, in the C tier. NWA, I don't even think that's a word. Appetite for Destruction is a great song. She Swallowed It is a terrible song. I think those two songs sum up this record really well. It's horrifically inconsistent. Above Tribe, in the C tier. Interpol, The Other Side of Make Believe. Very unimpressive shit here. Not painfully bad, but average through and through. D tier, above the Beatles. Jay-Z, Unfinished Business. Man, this one surprised me a bit. I'm not the biggest Jay-Z fan in the world, especially not nowadays, but this was shell-shockingly bad. It's an album headlined by two pedophiles, and now I kind of feel like a victim. Unbearable listen. Behind Biggie, in the WOT tier. Nirvana, Bleach. And now for a much-needed palate cleanser, Nirvana's debut record. I'm not the biggest Bleach fan, but this as your worst record it's a great answer. It's got a couple hits, but a lot of this album sounds very similar to me. Very great project for them to build off, though. It laid out the groundwork for grunge very well. Back of the beats here. Genius, Words from the Genius. From a guy calling himself the Genius, this is pretty mediocre stuff. I feel slightly dumber after listening to this, but it's his first solo album. I'll cut him a little bit of slack. Above the Gorillaz, in the D tier. Disturbed, Evolution. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse than The Sickness, Evolution leaped out of the woods and drilled a hole directly through my eardrums. This is pretty terrible, but it's so bad that it's almost good, you know? Behind Misfits, in the woe tier. Jeff Buckley, Grace. I probably shouldn't have even included this one, but Jeff Buckley's sole record is technically also his worst. I've made a new special tier for Grace, as it's one of the best records of all time. Into the Jeffrey tier. Dr. Dre, Missionary. A collaborative project with Snoop Dogg, and to be perfectly honest, pulling no punches. It's okay. I don't have much else to say. C tier, behind Led Zeppelin. Foo Fighters, Medicine at Midnight. For a lot of my life, I was a huge Foo Fighters fan, and I genuinely had no idea this album even existed. Maybe the most forgettable project of all time. Seriously, who cares? Above The Cure, in the D tier. Oasis, Heathen Chemistry. This is just a bloated pile of garbage. Stop Crying Your Heart Out is an excellent song, one of my favorites from this band. But everything else here either stinks or I've forgotten already. Behind The Cure, in the D tier. Opeth, Heritage. This just doesn't register as Opeth to me. It's not the worst shit ever, but it's super out of place in their discography. A blip on their discography, to be honest. Not worth the listen. Above Pierce the Veil, in the C tier. Swans, Greed. Ooh. Luckily, this is not my introduction to this band, because this is a nothing sandwich right here. The opening track was pretty good, though. I enjoyed that one. Behind Blur, in the C tier. Paramore, All We Know Is Falling. In my debuts video, I had this record pretty low. It's going to do much better this time, exclusively based on the garbage that's already on this list. This really isn't all that good, but it's much better than most of the shit here. C tier, above My Chemical Romance. Pearl Jam, Gigaton. To my poor, sweet Pearl Jammers, please forgive me. This stinks. Nothing is truly terrible here, but I don't think I'd call a single song good, either. If this were deleted, I don't think anyone in the entire world would notice. D tier, behind the Foo Fighters. Portishead's self-titled record. This is pretty great, to be honest. I have a new appreciation for artists without a terrible album, and this is nowhere near that. Very cohesive project, really strong shit. I enjoyed this a lot. Top of the S tier. Primus and the Chocolate Factory with the Fungi Ensemble. Yes, I'm aware I said the name wrong. I will never stop. It's personal now. This album is pretty bad. It's fun bad, though. Pretty fun concept, but I don't think you can stretch out that concept for an entire album. Maybe a gag EP or a song or two. But this was 40 minutes, and it felt like triple that time. Behind Incubus, in the D tier. Iron Maiden, Virtual 11. I'd like to quote one of the greatest scholars, and to be quite honest, one of the greatest thinkers of our time. Album of the Year user, Bullfart Monkey. He says, I don't want to talk about the physical pain this album caused me. Woe tier, behind David Bowie. Tupac, Pac's Life. Truthfully, I could have gone with any of the... Hold on, this can't be right. No, I think, yeah. 6 Posthumous albums. Good lord, they milked this guy's corpse dry. But I've chosen his final release. I think all 6 of these just get worse as they go, as they dig deeper and deeper in the trash pile Pac deemed unfit to release, and just printed that shit out for more money. I don't respect this album, but it's not quite as bad as that Biggie garbage. Back of the woe tier. Beastie Boys, The Mix-Up. My favorite group of white boys truly missed the mark with this one here. I'm glad they did one more record after this one. It's much better. This would have been a super lackluster way for these guys to go out. This album's just ass top to bottom, to be honest with you. Behind Modest Mouse, in the D tier. Radiohead, Pablo Honey. I feel I've properly expressed my hatred for Pablo Honey many times, but I'll do it again. It sucks. Creep is a good song, and is the highlight of the record, no matter what Tom York tries to tell you in a dark alleyway. It's not as bad as I play it up to be, but there's just so little charm on this compared to literally any other Radiohead album. Yes, even the King of Limbs. Behind Alice in Chains, in the C tier. Deftones, Gore. Man, this hurts. I don't think this is terrible top to bottom. No way. Phantom Bride is an excellent song, and I like Prayers and Triangles. Everything else, I could comfortably live without. This isn't fun to listen to top to bottom at all. Way too many filler tracks here. C tier, behind Paramore. Drake. Honestly, never mind. Another artist with several choices for his worst record, but I think this one takes the metaphorical shit-covered cake. This just sucks, man. I don't know how else to describe it. Anyone that has heard this record knows what I'm talking about. I have no specifics. It just stinks. Above the Chili Peppers, in the woe tier. Bush, Black and White Rainbows. Damn, this sucks. That's all. Behind Kanye, in the woe tier. Have a Nice Life, Sea of Worry. This probably just shouldn't exist. A tragic way to end a relatively legendary 2-album run. Well, at least a legendary debut. This does nothing for me. It's forgotten. Goodbye. Behind Soundgarden, in the C tier. Shinedown, Planet Zero. This is a giant pile of tacky, soulless garbage, dear viewer. Is every song bad? No. But the concept of this album is just insulting. It just isn't fun to listen to at all. Pretentious trash that actually stinks is hard to pull off, but Shinedown did that shit pretty well. Woe Tier, behind Drake. Sleep Token, even in Arcadia. I don't know how much longer I can do this, dear viewer. This is getting painful. This sucks. Let's move on. D Tier, above Incubus. Arcade Fire, Pink Elephant. This wants to be different so bad that it feels like the band took out every quality point and put that shit directly into the be as weird as physically possible point. This is the same band that wrote Funeral, by the way. I couldn't tell. This blows. Above Linkin Park, in the D Tier. Mos Def, True Magic. I'm not sure where the magic is, but know this, dear viewer, it was nowhere near this project. Not a single song worth listening to in here, unless, of course, you're in the pursuit of the worst song ever. For that, I can point you towards Dollar Day. Behind Creed, in the D Tier. The Smashing Pumpkins, Atom. At some point, Billy Corgan must have been hit in the head so hard that he completely forgot how to write a song. It was far before this album, but this is where his pretentious garbage hits its peak. This is 2.5 hours long. It wants to be good so bad that it just comes across completely devoid of anything. I hate it. Behind Metallica, in the Woe Tier. Steely Dan, Everything Must Go. Behind Pearl Jam, in the D Tier. Stone Temple Pilots' self-titled project. That's the second self-titled. An incredibly important distinction, as only one of them is even listenable. This is terrible. Scott Weiland died, and not knowing what to do, it feels like the band tried to find a guy that sounded like him and then just shit out a terrifyingly mediocre record with that guy. Just retire when your lead singer dies. Please, I beg. Behind Mos Def, in the D Tier. 9 Inch Nails, Ghost 6, Locusts. This isn't so bad, to be honest. I enjoyed this quite a bit. It's not the Downward Spiral, it's not even the Fragile. But it's good enough as hopefully the band's final project. Back at the B Tier. Korn, The Path of Totality. I'm just going to read you one of the features on this album. I think it gets my point across pretty well. Skrillex of Bangarang fame features on 3 songs here. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Behind Bush, in the Woe Tier. Queens of the Stone Age, Villains. I really like the cover art here. Honestly, this isn't a bad project. It's cohesive enough. I like the concept. It's got a couple strong tracks. This is a great record to be your weakest record. B Tier, Above Death. Arctic Monkeys, The Car. It's not the worst shit ever. It's catchy enough. I don't care, you know? C Tier, Above MWA. Tool, Fear Inoculum. Yeah, this is worse than Undertow. You can fight me on that shit. Still a pretty great project. It just makes the band's age very blatantly obvious. It's not as catchy, it's not as fun, it's not as beautiful as anything else from these guys. No way. I'll put it at the top of the A Tier. Suicidal Tendencies, still psychopunk after all these years. D Tier, Above Nas. King Crimson, The Construction of Light. I think I've cracked the code. After 30 years in the music industry, you completely forget how to write music. Is this terrible? No. But man, the dichotomy between this album and In the Court of the Crimson King is actually baffling. I Won't Be Back. Behind the Gorillaz, in the D Tier. Eminem, Revival. Good lord, I remember the day this shit came out. Rick Rubin produced this record. That's crazy shit. This is both of their worst projects. This is completely empty, shockingly so. So little is said on this album that it's actually surprising. This is a worst of all time contender. Above Limp Bizkit, in the Woe Tier. Queen, Hot Space. Hot Space, or as I've come to know it, Under Pressure and Friends. That song is an obvious, undeniable classic, but every single other song here is pretty bad. I never understand how this shit happens. It's clear they can still write at a high level. They wrote Under Pressure right on this fucking album. How is everything else balls? How, Freddie? D Tier, Above the Gorillaz. Faith No More, We Care a Lot. The title track is good enough. So good they released that shit on both their first and second albums. Everything else, I don't care. Above the Beatles, in the D Tier. Elliott Smith, Roman Candle. This is actually pretty good. Top to bottom, there's no real skips on here. I've come to like this more as time goes on. It's not his best, but as his weakest album, it's an excellent project. A Tier, Above Mad Season. Temple of the Dog, self-titled. This is pretty great. Again, their only album, but I figured why not include them. It's great grunge fun. It's nothing less. It's nothing more. Above Mad Season, in the A Tier. The Doors, Full Circle. Another classic case of trying to continue a band after the lead singer and lead creative died. Fruitless efforts. Jim Morrison was The Doors. Without him, you get a middling pile of dull trash. Above Linkin Park, in the D Tier. Pink Floyd, The Endless River. This record comes almost 50 years after their debut, and my God, is that clear. It's technically a Pink Floyd record, but it's without Roger Waters and Richard Wright. It's half the band they once were. It's a nice enough tribute to Richard Wright, but after Roger Waters left, the music's quality just took a fucking nosedive. This isn't worth the listen, I don't think. Above Queen, in the D Tier. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Axis, Bold as Love. It's an incredible project. No bad albums from this band. 40 minutes of a relatively immersive experience. You can't go wrong with a single album from this band, no way. Back of the S tier. The Killers, Wonderful Wonderful. This isn't so bad. A couple solid tracks on here to be honest, but 7 of the 10 tracks are super generic and just kind of boring. Mid stuff. Above Soundgarden in the C tier. The Police, Regatta de Blanc. Message in a Bottle is a classic song. Walking on the Moon should be a classic. Everything else, who cares? Back of the C tier. The Roots, Organics. C tier behind A Tribe Called Quest. The Smile, Cutouts. Every The Smile album sounds the exact same and I would argue are nearly indistinguishable from each other. I'm not even sure which one this is. They're all a solid 7.5 out of 10 I would say, which is better than a lot of the trash we've ranked so far. So that's pretty good. B tier, Above Death. The Smiths, Strange Ways, Here We Come. This was honestly pretty good. Relatively cohesive project. Pretty fun shit. It's not their best, but it's not that far from their best, you know what I mean? Pretty consistent group. B tier, Above Death. The Strokes, Come Down Machine. I think this is an overhated project. It's not nearly as good as their best records, but the hits on this album do stand tall here. The closing track, Call It Fate, Call It Karma, is a real heavy hitter track. I like it a lot. It's pretty solid through and through, I would say. Top of the B tier. 50 Cent, Animal Ambition, An Untamed Desire to Win. Man, this is just silly top to bottom. You know the Daredevil dog? The dog that thinks he's a real tough fucking guy? That's how I picture 50 Cent throughout this entire project. It's weak. Behind Drake, in the woke tier. The Velvet Underground, Squeeze. My knee-jerk reaction to this record was genuinely hysterical laughter. Perhaps it's the 100 terrible albums I listened to before this one, but this album truly shattered my will. This is an insult to any fan of this band. I don't know the context, perhaps every single member of the band died and someone else wrote this shit, but this is borderline inexcusable garbage. Behind Korn, in the GOAT tier. Third Eye Blind, Screamer. The title track is pretty good actually, it reminds me a lot of their earlier works. 2X Tigers is also really terrible. It also reminds me of their earlier works. I didn't have fun with this. Above The Cure, in the D tier. 3 Days Grace, Explosions. The only explosion was in my head, dear viewer. This is atrocious. I'm running out of synonyms for the word bad. Don't listen to this. D tier, Behind Linkin Park. Travis Scott, Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. Wildly inconsistent project here. There's some solid songs on here, but man, are there some terrible songs here as well. It's mostly terrible songs. C tier, Behind Fishmans. Typo Negative, Dead Again. This was so goddamn long, it's insane, man. Only an hour and 20 minutes, but my god, I feel like I died again while listening to this project. It's got good moments, but I'm never going to listen to this top to bottom again. No way. C tier, Above Deftones. U2, Songs of Surrender. Guys, Woe tier, Above Kanye West. System of a Down, Steal This Album. And now for our final good album of the video. System of a Down's collection of unreleased tracks. I don't often revisit this project top to bottom, but there are undoubtedly some great songs, and I absolutely love a couple on here. I don't think it works great as a project, but there's not a bad song on here, I wouldn't say. A tier, Behind Temple of the Dog. Van Halen 3. Holy shit. You actually have to hear this one for yourself. Little homework for tonight, dear viewer. Listen to the song, How Many Say I? And try not to kill yourself in the process. Another top spot contender here, folks. I'm thinking Woe tier, Above Eminem. Ween, La Cucaracha. I love Ween these days, but this project just isn't it, fellas. Something's just off on this record. It's not nearly as cohesive as anything else from these guys. It's not nearly as fun. It felt like a chore to listen to. It's not horrible, but disappointing in their discography, and not a great way to close it out. C tier, Behind a Perfect Circle. Weezer, Ratitude. Wow, this is horrible stuff. The Lil Wayne feature is pretty funny to see, but it's not even funny in practice. This was just not fun at all. Behind Drake, in the Woe tier. Wu-Tang Clan, A Better Tomorrow. Super hollow record. I think they ran out of shit to say about 4 albums before this, to be honest. Every record just gets worse and worse. It's impressive. Behind Stone Temple Pilots, in the D tier. The Microphones, Little Bird Flies into a Big Black Cloud. And last but most certainly not least, although I guess you'd want to be least for this video. Anyway, this project. It's okay. A weird mark on their discography, but it just sounds unfinished to me. Kind of boring. Not a lot of fun. A little introspective, I guess. Above Doom, in the C tier. And with that, it's over. My god, this was painful. In lighter news, the antithesis of this video is coming soon. That's every artist's best album pitted against each other. Should be much, much more fun for me. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, or I will personally send you a Saint Anger vinyl. And I hope to see you next time. Peace.